take the meeting off of mute? We cannot hear the meeting, what you're saying.
Okay.
Could you please take it off mute?
Okay. Can you hear us now, Amanda?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So,
Thank you very much.
You should check that they can hear you again.
Amanda, you can hear me?
I can. You're very clear. Yes, thank you.
Okay. I will start again that this is the meeting of the Eastham Elementary School Committee. This meeting will be video recorded and broadcast over local access channel 8 and through the town website at www.eastham-ma.gov. And I'll call to order the meeting at 5:04 and declare that we have a quorum. There are no agenda changes. Is there any public comment?
There is no one raising their hand online.
Okay, thanks, Amanda.
Mhm.
Okay, moving on, we'll go to priority business, and I'll ask Assistant Superintendent Vicky to begin her report.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I will just share my screen. Wonderful. Huh. Great, perfect. So today I just wanted to give an overview of our MCAS results. I'm going to do a high-level overview of our district results and then dive a little bit more specifically into Eastham. And please feel free to stop me at any point whether you have any questions or if there's anything I can answer for you. You have the full presentation available to you. So there's going to be a couple of slides I'm just going to skip over, but I'm happy to go over anything that you might have questions over. So in terms of MCAS, I always say that it is one measure for us, and it gives us a good glimpse, an opportunity to kind of take a look at how we are doing as a district, how our students are responding to the curriculum, how effective our instruction is, and even though it's only one test, it does gives us some good information that we're able to kind of base some of our planning from. So having said that, we do kind of look at it that we don't always just take MCAS as a standalone sample of that. We try to triangulate our data, taking a look at our other district assessments that we use to make sure that we're confirming what we're kind of seeing across the board. And our biggest kind of heaviest information that we do use in terms of data is our more school-based data that teachers pull and our student work. So we kind of try to go in our pyramid, if you kind of think about it, where MCAS has like an important but smaller pie of our data dive, and the student work being kind of like the largest piece because it really gives us an opportunity to have more in the moment response, So kind of keeping that in mind as we go through this presentation. So MCAS is being broken into 4 measurements, not meeting, partially meeting, meeting, and exceeding expectations given the scores. So when we're going to take a look at our data, I just wanted to point out that we're going to be looking at the percentage of students and how they score in the category of meeting and exceeding, and the 2 scores have been combined just for easier use. So just a big picture overview, and the reason I kind of bring this up is because one of the data points that we'll be looking at is a multi-year trend, which is kind of helpful for us to kind of see how we are doing as a district over the years, see if there's any particular areas that we're seeing growth or on the flip side dips. But one of the things to kind of keep in mind when we do look at that multi-year kind of trend is that in 2020, there was no MCAS because of COVID. In 2021, it was a partial test. And 2022 and to the present year, it has been a full test, but there have been some changes. So 2 years ago, they made some significant changes in how our English language arts assessment is being scored. And there were some changes in categories for mathematics, so even though it's good to see the multi-year trend, we're not exactly comparing apples to apples. So this graph, I think, which gives an opportunity to take a look at how we compare to our Cape Cod districts, as well as what the DESE, the Department of Education, labels as our like districts. So Wachusett, Tantascwa, and Quaboc Regional are the districts that the state says that are the most like Nauset in terms of structure and population. So as you can see for English language arts, this is all of our students who take the MCAS starting grades 3 and through grade 10. This is their cumulative scores in the categories of M and E, which is meeting and exceeding. So that's the score level that I said were combined. So for this purposes, you can see that in English language arts, NASA scored, we have 53% of our students for this past year that are in the meeting and exceeding score, which puts us at the top of our comparison districts. If we take a look at math, you can see that we've taken a slight dip in mathematics over the last couple of years, and we're a little bit below the state. And in terms of meeting and exceeding, we have 38% of our students that scored in that category, and we're about in the middle of our comparison districts. And science, we are 46% of our students in grades 3. Well, actually, science is only being tested in 3 grades, grades 5, 8, and 10. So this is the number of students, 46% of our students in the combined 3 grades have scored in the meeting and exceeding category for science, which puts us a little bit above our comparison districts. So taking a look at the student growth percentile, so in terms of the score, this is actually one that we do pay closer attention to because this score actually tracks how a student is finding success from year to year. So we really want to see that a student, regardless of where they are in the scale that I shared with you before, stars, that they are showing growth. So you could have a student that maybe is in the needs improvement category, but they have had a really great growth according to their chart. So that is actually very promising because it's showing that they're actually they're learning and they're meeting the goals that have been set for them. So in terms of this score, which we'll take a look, we really want to see it score from 1 to 99, and we want to see our kids be in about 50 or above is where we're kind of aiming for. So looking at ELA MCAS, I just shared with you just some of the questions, what they look like at the different grade levels, just so you can kind of see what type of questions the kids are being asked. I also included the shift that I mentioned when in ELA that happened for elementary level, where they changed how the rubrics are being measured, their responses. So now they're on a 4-point scale, and one of the biggest additions is that they're being asked for grammar and vocabulary. So that's something that was not counted before that now is being scored. So if we're taking a look at grades 3 through 10 in the English language arts, you can see that, as I mentioned before, 54% of our students are in the meeting and exceeding category. And if you take a look at the line plot right here, Nauset is the darker green color as comparison to the state. So as you can see our trend over the last couple of years, we are starting to trend back up a little bit, and we're above the state. You can also see that our average SGP, which is the student growth percentile, is 49.8. So that means that's, like I said, that score, we want to see our kids be somewhere around 50. So that's a really great spot for our kids to be. That shows that our kiddos are making progress year to year. And in the right-hand side, you can see if we look at a little bit closer of the different categories that students are measured, and 70% of our students are actually scoring in the meeting and exceeding for reading, which is, and language arts, and you can see we're trending above the state. So taking a look at mathematics really quickly. So as you can see, I've did the same thing. I pulled just a few question samples for you in the different grade levels, just so you can kind of see what the kids are seeing. And if we take a look at our district score, as I mentioned before, we did take a dip in math, although we are trending a little bit closer to the state than I think that we would like to see us. We would like to see a bigger gap. And our student growth percentile, though, is on a higher level of 46, which is showing us that even though our scores are a little bit lower, the students are still making growth. And the bar charts to the right, you can kind of see that there's definitely areas that our district is performing really strongly in. All right. So taking a look at Eastham Elementary. So particular to our school here, you can see that are actually in, if you take, this is grades, English language arts for students in grades 3, 4, and 5. And you can see we actually saw quite a significant increase between last year's scores and this past year's scores in how students are performing, which you can see that our line is starting to trend upwards. And 59% of our students in grades 3 through 5 are in the meeting exceeding category for English language arts, with reading and language being one of our highest scoring areas.
Vicky, can I
Sure.
ask a question? I feel like I read somewhere that the state might have given a special shout out to Eastham because of the growth in
Yes,
Massachusetts.
in mathematics, yes.
Mathematics, okay.
Mhm. Yeah, so thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, so we actually have quite a few things to celebrate here. But one of the things when I get to the math score, you will see that we actually, Eastham and Orleans were two of our schools out of the whole entire state that got recognized for closing the achievement gap for students pre-pandemic. So it's a little effort. Yeah, well, hey, listen, it's just due to our principal and our amazing teachers, yeah. So just breaking it down a little bit by grade level, I just want to point out that this is the scores for our third graders, which one of the things that I really want to say that are quite impressive is the language scores and the reading score. And this is the first time that kiddos are taking the test online. And even our writing scores, even though it's at 26%, that is usually the lowest scoring area because it's the kids have to write an essay. So there's like a technical issue and a special, and plus like the questions have to like generalize what they're reading and have a response, and like the level of what they're being asked and how they're measured is, like I said, has been elevated. So they're looking at grammar and spelling, you know what I mean, all that for grade 3. So our kiddos are actually doing really well. And as you can see, I pulled out just a couple of things that, like in reading, for example, 14 points above the state, which is really impressive. Just looking at grade 4 really quickly too. Again, those areas are really popping out for grade 4 as well, which is showing that the kids are continuing to master those grade level skills with language conventions, which is being like able, just more like the grammatical parts of being 24 points above the state, which is really, really impressive. And lastly, for grade 5, again, there are some areas that we're scoring very highly above the state, and the reading and language is continuing to be a really strong point for our kiddos. If we just switch subjects really quickly and taking a look at math, so as you can see, the graph here really jumps and we're quite above the state level here with 57% of our students being in the meeting and exceeding category. And as you can see, the student growth percentile is lower, but that is actually expected, which is one of those like phenomena that the higher the kids score, the less of a growth they're going to have, just because they're showing mastery. So it's like, even though I said we want our kids to be around 50, we have to consider like where they are, you know what I mean, in terms of the average score, you know. So when we look at individual levels, you know what I mean, or individual students, that's where we kind of take a look at how that particular student has made growth, you know. So if we have students that scored really high in the exam, they're going to have a minimal growth that they're going to show, just the way the test is set up. So looking at grade 3 in mathematics too, as you can see that that last category of operations and algebraic thinking, which is something that I always try to pay attention to. And as you can see, 71% of our students did really well. And that is an area that you really want to have our kids master at elementary level, because that's going to really set them up for success in middle school. That's going to help them with algebra concepts, you know, pre-calculus going in the future. So you really want to make sure that those skills are solid. Geometry is something that you can see that kind of popped out a little bit, which makes me wonder if we want to just take a look at our scope and sequence to see like when skills are taught. It might be just like, earlier part of the year needs a little bit more of a revisit, so usually that's a quick and easy fix, and we just have to take a look at our programmatic a little bit. If we look at grade 4, you can see that measurement and data, for example, were 19 points above the state, with geometry there actually making a little bit of a recovery. So again, it's just interesting to see like why that happens. We can take a closer look at the individual test responses and take a deeper dive. But you can see grade 4 is trending really strongly with that numbers operations and that operations algebraic thinking being one of the higher categories. And lastly, for grade 5, again, same thing, that you can kind of see that our students are continuing to trend pretty strongly, with operations algebra taking a slight shift, a slight dip there. So again, this is one of the things that the test lets us, gives us like a quick glimpse, so we can kind of say, like, let's take a closer look at that, see what our other data shows, you know what I mean? And see if there's anything that we would need to respond, or maybe it's just like a test day thing, or, like something, or a year thing, so. And the last part, the science and technology, so only grade 5 students take it. That's why we don't have a student growth percentile. You can see the 2 dashes there, because we need multi-year data to be able to track growth. So we wouldn't have that score until 8th grade. But as you can tell, that our science scores are trending upwards, even after taking a dip in 2022, which completely makes sense. But we're kind of going in the right direction. And students are tested in all science standards being taught starting at kindergarten. So it's like a cumulative test that they have to do in 5th grade. So the teachers are doing a really nice job revisiting the concepts, with kids, as we can tell by the score. So lastly, talking about like the celebrations, we talked about the math. As you can see, there's definitely some areas that have been really strong. Principal Crosby, I know, has been doing a lot of great work at his school, and I don't know if there's something that you want to particularly highlight for the committee, if I did put you on a spot. All right, perfect. So one of the
Just a
Mhm.
tremendous staff.
Mhm.
It takes a village, K to 5. So I just appreciate their dedication and, professionalism towards, meeting these goals and the kids, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that I do want to highlight, that I'm really excited about, that is happening this year, is that our teachers, we have a new ELA program that we adopted last year, EL, Expeditionary Learning, and which has been like a lift for our teachers. But one of the things that the principals have been working really across all the elementary schools together is to provide opportunities for teachers to meet across all the elementary schools on a monthly basis to kind of plan out the new curriculum, share best practices. And this is something that was not really available beforehand. And it's really only been able to happen through the coordination of our principals and their leadership and support. They're in those meetings with the teachers, kind of help facilitate. And they have so far, I think, have been really highly successful. Bill, wanted to say, like, I think we've had some great feedback on that.
Yeah, it's a
from
great
our staff.
opportunity to, bring
Mhm.
the district together at those
Right.
individual grade levels and to share best practices. Yeah, it's gone well, really.
Yeah. So it's been very excited, that we're able to kind of bridge our schools together that way, and give, especially we have smaller schools, so give teachers opportunities to kind of meet with their colleagues, as well. Yeah, and then is there anything else that you feel that we're missing
No,
out?
I don't think so, Vicky.
Mhm.
No, I appreciate it.
Perfect.
Thanks.
So that kind of brings me to the end of my presentation. Happy to take any questions you might have.
Does anyone have any questions?
Perfect. Well, thank you very much.
I just wanted to say thank you for this presentation.
Yeah.
It was very thorough. I thought, very well done. And just congratulations to the principal and to all the teachers and staff at the school. I think this is very impressive, and it's really is something to celebrate the achievements that are happening.
Absolutely.
No, thanks, Sarah. Yeah. And Vicky, also, the presentation, I've been here a long time, and the presentation was fabulous, really.
Thank you.
No, you just dove deeply into some of and the explanations have been good too. So
Yes,
thank you.
for someone
Very
that is
informative.
new to all of this, I really appreciated
Great.
you giving the background, because I think that was very important, understanding the historical context of what's happened with the tests, which the average person doesn't.
But I also like what you prefaced with is that it is just one measure.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you, Vicky.
Sure.
All right, Matt Kravitz, you're up.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me here this evening. I'm going to touch on 3 topics. Amanda's going to share my presentation once it's allowed.
I'm waiting on permission to share, and if they can turn Director Kravitz's microphone on, it would be helpful, please.
Can you
So
hear me?
as soon as I can share, yes, thank you.
Thank you very much. I think she has it.
Can you see it on the screen now?
Not yet.
Okay, let me try again.
And there it is. Thank you, Amanda.
Great.
So tonight we're going to hit on 3 topics. One is an update on our upcoming audits this year. Secondly, we're going to look at some enrollment numbers within special education in Eastham over 3 points in time, and then give just a very brief update on our current situation with pre-K and a brief explanation as to how it actually runs. So starting off this year, we are in a cycle where we are being audited by the Department of Ed 3 times over the course of 1 year. The first time was last month, where they audited our circuit breaker application. For those unfamiliar, circuit breaker is a reimbursement program through the state for districts that have very high special education costs, particularly for students that go out of district or have to be educated outside of Eastham. If you think about it, if a student has $100,000 tuition cost, there's the deductible that you pay, $53,000, and anything beyond that, 75 cents on the dollar, is returned back to the district to be spent on special education funding. The state sets very clear parameters as to how we apply for that. They just change the application process every couple of years. So they came in and audited, and through going through every student's IEP, all of our bills and everything, the auditors found one thing that we applied for and was ineligible for the process. So because of that, they made a reduction of $17,000, meaning that the net reimbursement this year is $102,000. It'll be approximately 5 to 7 years before they come back and do another audit. That difference will be basically taken out of Q3 and Q4 reimbursements this year to the town. The second audit is coming in April, and in April, the Department of Ed is going to be coming and doing a site visit at all of our schools. They're going to be interviewing staff, looking at policies and procedures. They're going to be looking at textbooks. They're going to be looking at classroom sizes for equity, accessibility, looking really with a fine-tooth comb about everything that is special education within all of our elementary and our regional programs. Interviews with the superintendent, myself, some teachers, potentially a school committee member, looking at student files. We will know the details as to who they want to speak to and when, probably about a month before. So we're waiting until March to find out those details. So our cycle is towards the end of the year. I can tell you that from the last cycle 3 years ago, all of our districts did very well. They found small things to make corrective actions on, but nothing that would really change larger practice. But it is a very intensive audit that will take a lot of collaboration between all the schools and my department to go through. And lastly, a brand new audit that they started this year, and they are auditing IDEA processes for applying for and using funds. Now, IDEA is an entitlement grant, and monies that are given based upon numbers of students with disabilities in every district has to be spent directly on them. So they make it very easy as to what the money can be spent on. They have a graphic: red light, yellow light, green light. And they give examples of each kind of expenditure and which light it's under. If it's a green light expenditure, direct care for a student, no questions asked, passes the audit. Things that may be used for a student but may not, for example, like a walkie-talkie within a classroom, it's not clear that it's for a student, that may require justification, whereas other items are very clear that they cannot be paid for using IDEA funds. So they look at our expenditures as well as our business office's past practice on drawing down the money from the state and doing our final expenditure reports and just all the accounting practices of. This is brand new. None of us have been through this before. So it's going to be a collaborative effort between my office and the business office. So more to come as that gets closer.
Can I ask a question about the circuit breaker audit? So that was just for they just audited last year.
Correct.
And having that one issue, is that, like, did you think we performed well with that? I mean, like, are you
Yeah,
proud that they just
think
found
that we
one?
did very well.
Okay,
It was a matter of interpretation whether or not that item qualified.
Okay.
Everything that we apply for must be in a student's IEP. And the item that we did apply for was in the IEP. However, it wasn't listed in a specific section that they wanted it in. So therefore, that part of the application was not found eligible.
Got it.
So we were, I don't say aggressive, but we were assertive in what we applied for. But they said that certain things just weren't eligible.
Okay, great.
Just to follow up on that, there's not the option to correct that, like put it in the correct section of the IEP?
No. If everything that they're looking for is, it's what's called the service delivery grid, which outlines what the provider is, who the provider is, the number of minutes per week of service, and what that delivery looks like. Not everything that is done is directly in those grids. There are parts of the IEP, whether it be accommodation or access to certain staff, that are listed in other parts. But through the circuit breaker reimbursement process, they are only looking at the grid portions. So for example, if a student were to go for an evaluative period at a particular program, that's in the IEP, but it's not in the grid until the evaluation is done. Then it lives in the grid going forward. So again, it's an interpretation as to what would apply and what not, and they provided correction.
Thanks.
Okay, next slide. We're going to start to talk just about students, some of the special ed breakdown within Eastham. Here I gave 3 data points, and in doing so, I just wanted to show a couple of things. Number one, population is stable. We are not over-identifying certain populations as being disabled or within a certain criteria. Also, all of our numbers are within state norms. So if you look at from October 24 to January 25 to now, the percentage of students with disabilities, 18, 20, 19%, that's very stable. With 33 students with disabilities, 1 student constitutes 3% increase. The state average is 20%. So we're right on par with every other district in the state if they are to be average. And as far as the breakdown, you'll see, pick autism, for example, in 24, 6% to 8% to 12%. That would show just like an increase of, for example, 2 students coming in. Not major fluctuations, still within norms and showing stability within the program. What this does, those small fluctuations, is it forces the elementary school to be adaptive and flexible with their programming, which I can say that Eastham Elementary has done very, very well, because Eastham Elementary does receive move-ins more so than other schools. So as students move in mid-year, they must adapt their programming, what's offered, how it's offered, or even where it's offered. So I really do commend their efforts to meet the students where they're at in their functioning level. All right, changing gears to the next topic. Pre-K. So here at Nauset, pre-K is currently offered in Brewster only. In the past, there was 1 to 2 classrooms in Eastham. It has moved around to many schools many times over the last 29 years, but currently it all resides in Brewster, Stony Brook. The way things are structured is what we phrase integrated. Now, all students who are eligible for IEPs age 3 and older, we must provide programming. That is the law. Pre-K for general ed students, or what we call peer partners, is optional, but special ed pre-K programming is required. So when we say we offer it as integrated, that means that there are both students with disabilities and peer partners in the same room. The state says very clearly ratios must be 7 to 8, 7-8 split. 7 students with disabilities to 8 peer partners. All students with disabilities, it's free and appropriate public education, FAPE. Peer partners, there is a small tuition of $4,000 per peer, which all of our member districts do have some level of a reimbursement program for those families. So we currently have 3 classrooms in that model. Each classroom has 1 teacher and 2 paraeducators in that class. The state requires 1 teacher, 1 para with that ratio, but giving the second para, we believe, gives us a better level of service for those students. Last year, we also added a classroom which is called substantially separate. Some students, their needs profile is more profound and they're not able to be educated with peer partners. For those students, and currently 6 to 7 students meet that profile, they are educated in a separate classroom just with students with disabilities with much higher staffing and intensive interventions. That is staffed at almost a 1-to-1 ratio. So teacher and 1 para per student, and that is because there's toileting concerns, there's safety concerns, there's communication, there's applied behavioral analysis. It's very, very intensive, and that is the age that you want to push services in before kindergarten. That started last year. It made sense because Stony Brook, Eddy, middle, and high school all have programming for students that meet that profile, but we didn't have it at the pre-K. So we had enough students to make a classroom just for that, and it's been very successful. We also have currently 1 specialist teacher that services just pre-K, which allows all of our pre-K students art, music, creative outlets, exposure to things other than just the traditional classroom setting, more similar to what their kindergarten peers would get the next year. We have 1 full-time speech and language pathologist, a occupational pathologist that's shared with Stony Brook Elementary, part-time admin assistant, and part-time team chair. One thing to note is that we do offer full-day pre-K 5 days a week. Not all Cape Cod towns do that. Many towns offer AM, PM sessions Monday through Thursday with varying price points for that. So our belief is more time with students in seats in front of us, the better for the student, better for the community, and the culture of the school overall.
What is the requirement?
For
Well, there's a requirement to provide these services. So I guess the requirement, you don't have to do 5 days a week full time.
No, we do not. There is no time requirement. The requirement is that we provide whatever services are necessary for the students with disabilities to make gains.
Okay.
Some towns actually go and provide services out at daycare centers. So they take their staff and they push them out into the community, whereas we keep things in-house.
So given the ratio that you mentioned of special ed to peers, that's required and that, all special ed, students will have their needs met, does that mean that enrollment is limited for the peers? And if so, how does that work? Is it just a lottery or?
Exactly. So yes, we do have limited numbers of seats. We open up the lottery application process right after New Year's, and we hold it open for about 4 weeks. And we open it to all 4 towns. And if you see actually in the next section, the breakdown by town. For example, you see Brewster 8/21. That means that Brewster has 8 special ed students and 21 peer partners. Go down to Eastham, 4 special ed, 2 peer partners. One thing to mention is that special ed students have free transportation. Peer partners, it's the parent's responsibility to transport back and forth. So that is one barrier to access just transportation alone.
And I'm sure it varies by year, but do you know like what percent end up making it in?
What percent for each town?
Not for necessarily for each town, but of the peers, like, are 100 kids applying for X number of stuff?
I can tell you the last 2 years, we had about a 6 student wait list, but not for every location. We did ask parents to opt whether they chose Brewster or Eastham. This last year, we had almost no applicants for the Eastham location. So therefore, the decision was made by administration to close the Eastham class. All the materials are still there. So if population shifts, the classroom can open right back up as needed.
Thank you.
So we have to adapt. And as far as enrollment by programming, we have 8 students labeled integrated, 7 substantially separate, and 24 peer partners as of December. We keep 50% of our special ed seats open at the start of the year because the legal requirement is that all students with disabilities have a placement age 3. Some students turn 3 March, May, December. So we always start with a 50% capacity, and by the end of the year, we're full or slightly over for the last several years. So it's a bit of a planning estimate based on prior year's data. And the last slide is just a couple quick updates back to Orleans. And regarding specialized programming, currently 3 students who are Eastham residents are out of district. 1 private, 2 collaborative students. And there's 3 Eastham students that attend what we call to as inter-district programming. So they require services that are much more specialized that we house within Brewster. So they are transported to and from Brewster elementary schools each day. This year, as Eastham continues to their enrollment continues to evolve, they were able to actually adapt and create some specialized programming for 1 student, which shows their capacity to continue to meet needs where they're at. It's difficult to guess what we're going to get year to year. We know what we have and we're going forward, but I can really say that Principal Crosby and his team does a great job of brainstorming and finding ways to support their students. Everyone else receives all their education through inclusion, either partial or full inclusion within their peers. And that's the presentation.
So that last bullet point, they're at Eastham.
They're at Eastham.
In their,
yes.
okay.
Because all of our efforts are to give students their education in the least restrictive environment with their peers as much as possible.
So given that student, once they turn 3, they're eligible for services, does that mean that those are students who've been tested before age 3 and get their IEP set up?
Correct. So at 2.5, early intervention or Head Start will start to give us notice. At age 2 years, 9 months, a referral is made for us to screen and potentially evaluate. Between 2 years, 9 months and 36 months old, we have a plan developed, signed, and ready to go on their 3rd birthday.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Yeah, go ahead.
Can I go back and ask a question about MCAS or is that?
Yeah, just
Okay, yes,
just to,
after that.
but just to finish Uh, we will be doing years. Uh, the pro all aspect, and there's pros and cons to both. So it just know that it'll continue to be on the radar.
Thank you.
So yeah,
Yes,
Lindsay.
sorry.
So, students, uh,
The next item on the and I think about a meeting and management. So that would be a fund that the school committee would basically, if we had any surplus monies left over here, put it into that, and it would be something that we spent. I believe Brewster has one. You know, there's other. Um, last year, stuff voted. And Rich use it and looks at it, but he doesn't feel that there needs to fund and build it into the basically he set up a framework where he's comfortable. I believe it. And big with, you know, how he views it and how he. Yeah, that we, not to pursue it, not necessary. Basically, that, you know, the town it's supportive of our budget and understand that there can be surprise special. That they have. All right, moving on to the superintendent's report.
Sure. Good evening. And just I'm in contact with Amanda. It sounds like the audio is in and out tonight, so I'm not sure if that could be, if there's anything to remedy, but just to report that for this recording, that audio sounds to be a little challenging tonight. But I will forge on, if that's all right.
Yes.
With everyone. Again, good evening. I will go through the two documents that are in the school committee packet for this evening. One, the superintendent's report, and then end with a brief highlight on the high school renovation project. There's just a couple of things to note in my report this evening. A couple of working groups to share information on and to make sure that members of our committee here and our community are well aware. And kudos and thanks to my partner and colleague right next to me, Vicky Saldana, who's really has been taking the lead at this point for both of these. First, the Physical and Health Education Working Group. As you'll note there, a K-12 working group has been established. I think they've had one meeting to date, and it is inclusive of physical education teachers and mental health representatives, with the primary goal to review and take a closer look at the Massachusetts physical education and health frameworks. And with that review, develop recommendations for any possible gaps that we might have in our educational programming throughout our 7 schools, and recommendations in turn to the school committee to help advance that important part of the curriculum as a component of teaching and learning. So again, first meeting and more to come on this, but just we wanted to make sure that members of our school committee were aware that this is an effort that is unfolding in the background. The other working group, also K to 12, is on artificial intelligence, or AI. Obviously, this is a topic that is receiving a lot of attention everywhere, not just in the space of education, but really throughout society. And this is a working group that has also just recently launched and formed with the primary goal to take a closer look at our teaching and learning throughout the district and how that can meaningfully integrate artificial intelligence, or AI, into that work. It should be noted that there will be opportunities for community members to join this effort in the near future. This right now just is our internal staff, but there are plans to open this opportunity up. You can see the goals that are outlined for the working group there. And I think it's important to note that first bullet, there's definitely a lot of guidance, recommendations, thoughts around perhaps best practices that are starting to flow from both the state level and federal level for education. And so those are some great starting points there that this group will take a closer look at. Just to bring attention to some important changes behind the scenes that are happening within the central office and some key personnel changes. As you know, Arlen Consiglio, the executive assistant to the superintendent and longtime secretary for our school committees, is preparing to retire at the end of this week, in fact. Jen Snowden, who most recently has served as the executive assistant to our assistant superintendent, is taking over Arlen's role and actually is sliding into that role literally as we speak today and through the course of the next number of days. The great thing about this arrangement is there's been a lot of cross-training opportunities. They literally sit right next to each other. And so for our school committee's benefit, for my office, and for, of course, our entire district, I don't expect that we'll miss a beat, and it'll be a very seamless transition. With Jen's, though, transition, we are preparing to welcome Allison McGilvery, who, as I understand, is a Brewster resident, but who will be joining us this Thursday for her first day as the executive assistant to Vicki in her office as the assistant superintendent. So some important changes that are happening behind the scenes, but we're in good stead to move forward as we also celebrate the retirements of these long-term staff members for our educational community. Last, there is a separate document, if you will, that's attached around the high school building project. And I just want to take this opportunity to share with our committee and, of course, those that may be watching at home or will watch our meeting tonight. This magnificent building that is not too far, as everyone knows, from where we sit right now, is so close to completion. When this flyer brochure was put together, it was at 99% complete. I'm sure that that's closer to 99.9% as we sit here tonight. Phase 1 buildings, as I think and trust many are aware, those are fully occupied and have been for a little bit of time now. Phase 2 is the current phase that we're in. And that's on the doorstep, as I mentioned, of substantial completion that's expected at really any point in time now. There's other work with phase 2 that includes the heating and air conditioning systems and balancing, and continuing the work on punch list items, always an inevitable reality of a construction project, and ours is no different. At this point in time, I think all of, or soon will be, all of the furniture for phase 2 will have been delivered. And the move still is planned for over the upcoming winter break that will begin out of the modular classroom spaces, teachers and student, teacher belongings and equipment, with everything on course to open the new spaces on January the 5th, 2026, when we return from the winter break. Demolition of the modulars will happen mid-January. Once the spaces are vacated. And the final phase will be really mostly outside once those modulars have been demolished, and that will be retaining or returning that site rather to its original shape and condition that it was left some years ago. Just a friendly reminder that there's a ribbon cutting ceremony that is planned for March the 14th 2026, and we will do our very best to make sure that those invitations go out far and wide. This document, I will say, has also been shared with our towns with the hope that they will share this with their community partners. So lots of excitement that's building for really a phenomenal building, and I can't wait for everyone to see it. And that's it for my report, unless there are any questions tonight.
No, thank you. Can roll right into
Right
the,
into budget?
yeah.
Okay. Well, there are two items that align with the fiscal year 27, as hard as that is, at least for me, still to wrap my head around as we plan for next school year. The two documents in the school committee packet, and we will go through the slide deck tonight. One is a little bit more of an expansive background on where we're at this early stage for the building of the 26-27 budget, and a number of items that I'll point out that are in this document. And then we'll get into the slide deck. But first, certainly thanks to Principal Crosby, members of our central office leadership team who have worked hard to put together, in this case, the Eastham Elementary School budget. It's a busy time of the year, but obviously a tall order, but an important one to ask our school and district leaders to work on putting together a budget for a time period that's obviously still very far in the future. In this packet, you will, and we will touch upon most of this in the upcoming slide deck, an enrollment overview, where we're at right now and what we're looking at for projections for next year. Of course, a comparison at a high level at this preliminary budget stage between this current fiscal year, 26, and next fiscal year, 27. There's also in the document an organization chart. It's not in the slide deck, but some have asked for what that looks like. The central office budget, which I'll talk a little bit about in the slide presentation, is, as I've come to learn, an important component of our overall fiscal planning in our school system. And some were interested to see exactly what positions are being supported by that central office budget. You'll see that in that newly created organizational chart. Preschool planning, we really touched a little bit upon that, but just a little bit more as we continue that focus, and we'll conclude with the budget timeline. There are a couple of other pieces, though, that are not included in the slide deck, but I just wanted to bring attention to. First off, there is a link to what's called the NOSIT Budget Primer. And if you are new to school finance, school budgeting, and in particular here in the NOSIT Regional School District, this is really a great document that was put together by a citizen and is certainly a supporter of our school system, and it's a document that was reviewed by our school committee members. So it really tracks closely to our reality. There's a lot of information in that, but I found it very, very helpful to sort of orientate yourself to what the regional setting is here, our different budgets, and many different terms that there are certainly included in school finance. And then the other, just at the end of this document, is a brief overview of the new financial reporting system that I think I've talked about previously, and I know you were provided updates with last year. Work is ongoing as it relates to that new system, and we will be launching that July 2026. So just wanted to bring attention to that because I know members of the community are interested in that. With that, let's jump into the slide deck if we can, and let's take it away, Amanda. Thank you. Again, this is preliminary. This is intended to, that terminology is, it's a high level, and there's still things that are taking shape literally by the day, things that are perhaps realized maybe didn't get incorporated, or things that are adjusted that we realize that maybe some resources might free themselves up in other ways. So it is very fluid and it's a work in progress, but tonight is intended to provide you with a high-level overview of next year's budget. Next slide, please. It's just an overview of all of the folks that are key, obviously, stakeholders connected to this budget, and of course, members of the community. 2 slides ahead, if you can, Amanda, to the elementary school enrollment. Thank you so much. A lot of numbers on here, but just wanted to pause. Obviously, building a school budget is starting with the foremost, and that's our students, the students that the budget serves, and our programs and services. A few numbers on this deck and these tables, but what you're looking at here is a comparison for the Eastham Elementary School enrollment, starting back to FY24, K through 5, fiscal year 25. So of course, last school year, and then fiscal year 26, and then in turn fiscal year 27, which is obviously projected. I should note that the projected number makes a big assumption, and that is that all of our current students in those grades will stay here and will make their way from one grade to the next. And then there's an assumption and uncertainty, of course, of what the overall kindergarten enrollment is going to be. And that's, looking back at Eastham has ebbed and flowed over the last few years, but certainly a very healthy number. So with some hope and fingers crossed that we'll have a large number going into next year. Overall, if these projections hold true, a slight adjustment with a couple of students lost from our current fiscal year, but overall, from my vantage point, this is pretty steady and stable enrollment, which is a great thing to see. Down the bottom, you can see, just out of curiosity, a comparison with our the other elementary schools in the district, in our towns, Eastham, Brewster, Orleans, and Wellfleet, of course, and you can see what their current enrollment is, as well as a historic view from fiscal year 25 and 24. And as always, just a reminder, when we're talking about enrollment, we're always citing back to October 1st. October 1st is the key date, as I mentioned before, that DESE records this. So it's very possible that a number in one of these grade levels has changed, perhaps, since October 1st in any of our schools. Next slide, please. This provides you with a snapshot of what our current teachers are, number of sections, and in turn, number of students, and correspondingly, the average class size based upon the number of teachers or sections. And on the left-hand side of the slide, you can see the current year, 25-26, and what this would look like if these elementary projections hold for next school year, K-5, for 26 and 27. And you can see what the overall enrollment is. You can see right now with this plan that the intent is to keep the number of classrooms and sections the same, total number of 12 going forward, and what the class sizes would be if these numbers hold. Next slide, please.
Sorry to interrupt.
Yep,
Can we just
sure.
go back to the Eastham Elementary School enrollment? The previous one, Amanda. For the fiscal year 25, which would have been last year for kindergarten, where it says 10, right? Is that what it's saying? So there's 10 students? That it just happened to be that my daughter was in that class, so I know that there was, right?
Got
There
that
was,
correct?
Yeah.
Or that-
there was, there was 30.
Also inaccurate.
Sorry, I didn't catch that when I was reviewing it this weekend, but
And the second grade is also inaccurate. Like, it didn't jump 10 students. I don't know.
anyways, just to,
Well, no, it's important. And,
yeah.
and it's important to note these things. And this is the data that we're working from, and I'm finding increasingly that there's sometimes not alignment with all of the data that we have in our schools. So I'll look into that a little bit closer, see what
Okay.
that looks like. Thank you.
Just happened to know it because I was a parent. Thank you.
Yep. Highlights of proposed changes or adjustments, if you will, at the larger level. There are a couple of new positions that Principal Crosby, through the preliminary budget plan, has recommended, and we'll talk about those in a moment. But at the district level, that would be proposals that would ultimately make their way into the shared budget. There are two positions. The first, if I may, to talk about the Director of Communications that is being proposed. One of the things upon my arrival in the district, in conversation with one of our subcommittees, the Communications Subcommittee specifically, was a understanding that there has been a lot of interest in really trying to improve and enhance the communications of our district, of all 7 schools in our district. There's lots of room for growth in this area, and I would concur with that in these early months. And so I know that there was a conversation that I joined, if you will, upon my arrival to the district, and so this is a concept that the subcommittee worked to help put together. They shared it with me. They obviously wanted to make sure that I would be on board with it, and from my vantage point, I think that it makes great sense. There are increasingly districts that are adding this position. By no means can I say to you that all districts have this and we're an exception in not having this. That would not be true to say. But it's definitely an area where districts are starting to think more broadly, the recognition that communication obviously is essential, the challenges that our organizations have without having full-time public relations teams or that kind of thing. I mean, how can we try and enhance our communications, two-way communication with our communities? So it's being proposed here. Obviously, at the end of the day, it's only that, a proposal, unless it gets support from all of our school committees. But I did want to just take the opportunity to bring focus to that. The other is an assistant director of food services. It has become clear to me early on that there are high expectations for this this department and this service across our schools. A lot of intent to focus on continuing to improve the health and the nutritional aspect of the food that is served to our children across our 7 schools. This is a position that is being recommended again as a shared position. The one thing to note with this position, though, is that should it come into fruition and ultimately be approved by all committees, that this would be paid for, this would be cost neutral and paid for through the revolving fund, of which we have a healthy balance in for food services and nutrition. So there would be no impact on the budgets for this second position, and I just wanted to make sure to point that out. Next slide, please. The comparison for 26-27, just a couple of things here. I mentioned a moment ago that Principal Crosby has identified and put forth a proposal for a total number of FTEs of 2.6 for next fiscal year over this fiscal year, 1 FTE or full-time equivalent, just to make sure people are clear on that, full-time equivalent FTE for special education teacher and 1 paraeducator. As well as 0.6 FTE for Spanish instruction. Total, those collectively would total 150, just a little over 150,000, 151,000. In terms of preschool, one of the things that has become clear to me is that because of the fact that this program is region shared, preschool is region shared, the total operational costs for preschool then get divided amongst the 4 elementary committees. In total, the operational budget for preschool exceeds just a little bit over $1.5 million. So there's certainly a lot of fiscal resources that are tied up to that program to pay for, obviously, what is a more intensive level of staffing, both in terms of paraprofessionals as well as our educators and other support staff. What we have used in the district, as I have come to learn, is what's termed a 3-year rolling average calculation. There's a little more complicatedness than what we're going to cover tonight, but we can provide you with a greater insight in terms of what that looks like. Based upon the enrollment numbers that take a look back at the 3-year rolling average of enrollment for Eastham students, for Eastham students, right? I think I'm saying that correctly. The total assessment for that program for fiscal year 27 budget right now sits at just a little bit over 300,000 for Eastham for the preschool program. So certainly a sizable number, and this holds true, of course, across all of our 4 communities. That number varies. That 305,000 varies, of course, depending on which community you're in and how many students you have had over those 3 years in the program. Next slide, please. So
Ask a
sorry,
quick
yep,
question.
please.
So is Spanish being added to the curriculum for the elementary school?
I'll let Principal Crosby.
Yeah, based on the strategic plan that we've had for the last 5 years, it's part of one of the goals, to world languages and things like. So we've tried over the last couple of years to present that and to add it to the curriculum. School Improvement Council has also supported it. And we've tried, over the last couple of years to get it into the budget, but for one reason or another, I would think you guys would remember from last year that we tried to, to get that through. So I thought I'd try again,
Great.
And
Thanks.
if it's something that you want to do, then great. I also wanted to, Glenn, just to,
Sure.
that last chart there, that must have been a typo because the totals are correct. Do you know what I mean? So in the kindergarten classes, the totals are correct.
Thank you.
So it's just been a typo in those 2 other
Thank you.
columns.
Take a
Yeah.
closer look to that. Thank you. So in terms of again, a big picture, high level overview from where does fiscal year 26 budget compared to 27 at this point in time? Um, and relying upon Bob Dutch, our who's helping out in the finance office and the staff there to work together to pull these. So this boils down to just a couple of salary lines. Obviously, in the next pass of the budget, you'll see far greater detail on all of these budget lines. But when you roll all this together and you take into account the contractual increases that we have for our collectively bargained agreements, and all other things that go into the mix, from a salaries comparison, to just start there, that's the top line. You can see the farthest left column is the fiscal year 26 budget. So salaries collectively for Eastham, a little bit over 3.2 million. For fiscal year 27 proposed at level service, and just to make sure there's a clear understanding of what that's meant by that, level service is the existing staff that doesn't include the additional positions that Principal Crosby has identified and put forth for consideration. So that's level service. Percent increase to line item, so just a little bit over 170,000 to essentially roll over all of the existing staff that Eastham Elementary School relies upon right now. And then you can see the total percent increase, 5.32% increase for salaries. On the farthest right side of the table on the top, the requested, represents the additional staffing and what that would translate to should all of those positions be included in the budget moving forward. You can see the overall increase if all of the proposed positions in addition to the existing staff are included, and that would roll up to a little over 10% increase in staffing. In terms of expenses, this is everything else, but obviously personnel. And this is special education tuitions. This is the host of operational expenses and so on. Again, you'll have an opportunity to see a little bit more deeper those details. You can see the fiscal year 26 budget, how that compares to next year and what that corresponding increase is going forward. So the total operating expenses, you can see down second line from the bottom, and the region shared, this is that bottom line is for the central office budget that is still in development. I'll talk about that in just a second. And that is certainly still very fluid too, but you can see what the overall increases are if this budget were to move forward right now. So some large increases we're contending with. There's certainly some growing pressure on these budgets. This is not just Eastham, this is across the board. We have a sizable increase for the third of a 3-year collectively bargained contract at 3.25% increases across the board. So that's a factor that's certainly putting upward pressure on the overall salary increases in particular. Next slide, please. Central office budget.
Glenn, does
Go ahead, Beck.
that region shared number include the communications director?
It does.
Okay.
It does. The central office budget, as I mentioned, and as I'm sure all folks around this table know better than I certainly, but this is given our structure, there's a whole component that is not housed or directly related specifically to Eastham, but is shared across the region. And central office budget is certainly one of those. We have had a couple of meetings. There's a subcommittee, I should stress that is active in the development and ultimately put forth recommendations for this budget. We've had 2 meetings to date. The next meeting is scheduled for January the 8th, right when we get back after the winter break. The subcommittee that is involved with, as noted there, just as a friendly reminder, includes a representative from each of the member towns, as well as 2 from the regional school committee. And at the core of this budget is the salary of the central office team and support staff and other shared expenses that help make our district run. Right now, the placeholder of 6% for increases, and that again has to still shake itself out as we make our way into the next pass in January. Preschool planning is the next slide. We really talked a little bit about
Glenn,
this.
sorry,
Yep.
can we go back to because I didn't talk about the fiscal year 26 budget. Shouldn't I just mention the difference in that?
Sure.
So the fiscal year 26 budget in the packet is listed at 4.965 million. The one we passed last spring was, it was, I think, about 4.82. So Glenn and his team looked into the difference of that, and there's just in their system, they haven't offset yet the circuit breaker that we receive, rural aid, and then there's another component I think that we have to follow up on that wasn't certain. But if you are comparing, oh, they have the budget in here, 4.965 versus what we approved last spring, there is a difference. They're aware of it. And I just want to point that out.
Thank you. Sorry, Sarah. Thank you. Preschool planning, we have talked about, I think Sarah used the term complicated, complex earlier, and it is indeed that. There's a lot to it, as I've discovered. And at the same time, obviously an important program that services our youth throughout our 4 communities. So there's no question to me as I get up to speed with this, that as the numbers of enrollment drop, and the way that we calculate this 3-year average, and costs are always going up for staffing, right? There's definitely a tension that's growing there. And so, to the extent also that I've heard from some, I can't say across the board, but some about what might this look like to bring this program into our elementary schools. So it's a conversation that has been started, and Principal Crosby and the chair met with a wider group yesterday to talk about it, and we'll continue to talk about it. It's clear to me, though, that there's a lot that is involved with a change to this, and I think that would be the consensus of the group. But yet at the same time, an interest to have a focused conversation of this going forward. So as we sit here right now, I suspect that we will keep the structure exactly as is. We're going to take a closer look at the finances and see how we can spread these out across in a fair and equitable way across the districts. But I definitely think there's an interest to explore this a little bit more for the future conversation that would happen, as we get to out of the budget season. But that would be a conversation that could happen well in advance of next fiscal year, should there be an interest to make any changes. So stay tuned for more on this. This is it's a pretty significant area of our operations, though. While not serving a ton of students, there's a lot that goes with it, and a lot of importance too, as we think about it. So the last slide, where we're at, again, I know it's December, the middle of December, and I keep saying this, it is preliminary, but before we know it, we're going to be right back here at the same table and across all of our school committees talking about the next pass. And so there's a lot of work that's ongoing. And again, but we're on course to make sure we get these budgets delivered soundly, and make sure that all 4 corners are squared off, so that our school committees, this one included, is comfortable approving one well ahead of when it needs to be for our town meetings. I know that that's essential. I will take the opportunity to point out that we, again, this year, for the second year, as I understand it, we'll have a budget workshop planned for all of our school committees and invited elected officials. That is scheduled for Thursday, January the 29th, 2026, again at the Nauset Regional High School. I understand that was held last year, was first year, and that certainly there was some very positive feedback on the benefit and assistance that provided for folks to better understand our budget. So seemed like a no-brainer to continue on that course, and we will do that on Thursday, January 29th. So that is it for the presentation, but of course, happy to take any further questions if members have tonight.
Review. Get time to start thinking, isn't it?
Okay. Great. I don't think there's any more questions on
Okay,
the
thank
budget
you.
review. Thank you. So you're still up.
I am.
Now it's
yes.
the this year's monthly financial report, which if you keep going, it's right before the principal search memo.
Right, you have a snapshot of the budget to date. This was run just a couple of days ago, as of December 9th. This provides you with an overview of the budget to actuals, the amount that has been encumbered or secured financially, and then what the the variance looks like. The big picture, the bottom corner is there's no concerns with the budget as we currently stand in Eastham. So we're on course to still certainly be able to attend to all of the budget lines that have been identified. We are certainly, as we shore up our leadership in the finance department, I know that one of the things that we really need to do, amongst many, is to develop a consistent reporting update for our committees that looks the same from month to month, meeting to meeting, and then provides you with the kind of information that you want, not necessarily the depth and the details, but something that provides you with an accurate insight in terms of where you're standing fiscally. So that will certainly be one of the foremost areas that we'll have to attend to once we get some stability in the department going forward. So I'm happy to take any questions that you have, and if I can't answer them tonight, I'll certainly look into them and get back to you.
So towards the bottom where it says offsets, that's what I was describing before about in the budget presentation. So that if you look at the total budget, that's those three things is what is the difference between that 4.965 and that 4.812. I think what might be different with us than the other elementary schools is the way that we are handling this special education stabilization within the budget. That it'll be interesting to I don't know if we've actually have it on the spreadsheet or whatever form you end up giving us, but taking that out and seeing how we are as well, right? Because we have that big placeholder of $389,000 in there for if a child or two moves into the district, which would then, change where we ended up. But, or I could also just mentally have it in my head, but that's what I think about. Any questions for him on how we're looking? But this is great. Thank you for this format. Thank you to you and your team for this format with this easily readable, right, line items. I have not seen anything like this before, and it's
nice. It's all on one page.
yes, one page, and we can read it. And thank you for that.
Of course.
All right, moving on. We don't have any gifts or grants for this month. And our last item of the priority business is talking about our principal search.
Which I'm sure is very awkward for Principal Crosby.
Can I just interrupt
Yes,
you just a
yeah.
second? We do have some gifts.
Oh, we did?
do.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
but it's on the agenda, right? I mean, I have them if you,
I
you
didn't,
did you not get them?
no, I didn't see it in the packet. Okay, thank you. It's the best part of the meeting.
I don't want to get positive.
Yeah,
so-
okay. So it's two?
Assuming you should have had this or.
So didn't we approve this one last month? I'm saying, well, we can just,
Okay.
I was pretty sure we did, but we can just approve it again, just in case. Because, yeah, Friends of Pleasant Bay for 5,000, so
You did
unless they
those.
gave us, yeah. We definitely did this one last month, but,
All right,
okay, no, we didn't do this one. All right, we have
that would,
how do I tell if it's okay, it's a gift. It's a gift from Hayward Photography in the amount of $800.98. And it's to spend as Mr. Crosby wishes. So,
that's from the photographer. You know, you always get kind of a little kickback, you know?
okay. You said it, not me.
So thank you to the, thank you to the families, I suppose, for yes.
Uh-huh.
Happens everywhere, by the way.
Mr. Crosby's going to use it for his on the beach this summer.
Oh,
All right, can I get a motion to accept the $800.98 gift from Hayward Photography?
Motion to accept.
Second?
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Passes 4-0, Amanda. Thanks. Okay. Well, I'm glad we could get that. And now I'll go to the principal search.
Sure. Again, if I'm in Mr. Crosby's shoes, I'm probably both excited as well as a mix of feelings as we prepare to seek his replacement. But I wanted to just share very briefly with the committee and the community, Eastham community, my thoughts on obviously a very important task that is one of the foremost responsibilities I have, and that's the selection of new school leaders and district leaders throughout. In this case, preparing for the successor for Mr. Bill Crosby as he prepares to retire at the end of the school year. So, as noted in the memo, just the intention here is to, as Bill said, to, engage upon a thorough process and search. I think that that's always best and appropriate. And whether we have, for whatever position, candidates that are internal or external, going through the search process, I think is the best to identify the best fit, the best candidate at the point in time. So just share with you briefly, the intent is to get going when we get back in the new year pretty quickly. I've talked to Deirdre, who's our director of HR, and I'll work closely with her to help guide this process. Right now, the plan is to launch the search with the posting at the end of January, January 26th specifically, with the deadline to allow that to run for a good month's time. We think that that's appropriate. We will be putting together, and thanks to Bill, who's provided some great information and pictures to help assemble in terms of a brochure that will be a great tool for people who might not know anything about Eastham or the Eastham Elementary School. But it certainly might be interested in the principalship. So we'll put that together for you, and I'll try and get that before you, just to get your eyes on that before it goes out in your January meeting. The intention also is for these searches to try and gather a sense from our stakeholders of what they might be looking for in the next principal. So that's the survey piece that we'll work through in the coming weeks when we get back from the break. There will be, as always, a search committee. We'll do our very best to put together a committee that is representative of the stakeholders, inclusive, of course, of our staff and our parent guardians and community members. So stay tuned for that. There's nothing that we'll push out for that yet, but when we get back and closer to when the search will be launched. These searches tend to take a little bit of time from start to finish, but that's okay and that's important. I think we want to go through it in a comprehensive way. But if all things go as I would anticipate and hope, the posting's up until the end of February. The search committee will be ready to go and get started in early March. And then that will take some time to go through the interviews, multiple interviews, site visits, and so on. But I certainly think that it's very, very doable by the time we hit the early part of April, right before April break, to have a finalist selected. So just a bit on the search committee on the next page. Obviously, they play a very, very important role, and they'll have some core responsibilities to be partners in this work. The start date, of course, that we're gearing for is July 1st, 2026. And if all goes as planned, we can get somebody on board and have the opportunity for he or she to also have some time with Bill before he retires to best prepare them to take over. So that's the big picture plan, and we're looking ahead to when we get back in the new year. But I'm happy to take any questions if members of the committee have on thoughts around the principal search.
I just wanted to say one thing that how Glenn's going to structure it that I thought was great is when he's looking for the people on the committee, on the search committee, he'll have the exact dates of the meetings that they have to commit to. So, would you like to participate in this? And here are the exact times and meetings that you're going to have to attend so that people know their obligations and everybody shows up.
Yeah, I think it's just I found it's helpful for consistency too. Everyone has busy lives, and it's not meant to be something that's exclusionary, but rather a lot of people, a lot of busy calendars, and so setting out the dates for the meetings, really, I found is helpful for people to just either be able to say, yes, I know I can do it, or I would like to do it, but I might not be able to because of my calendar, and that's understandable too. So we will put those together, and we will have those for your January meeting before it goes out, so you'll see those.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, in the interest of time, the next agenda item is if anyone has to report anything back from their subcommittee meetings. So does anyone have anything crucial to report back on, or we can, go into more depth in it in the January meeting? I don't know.
Wait till January.
Yeah.
for sure.
Okay. And then future agenda items. So I have one for the January meeting. There has been an interest by a citizen and who followed up with the police chief to have a school resource officer at the Eastham Elementary School. So this is something that would be covered under the policy that the school committee would have to approve. So it would be voted on by the school committee and then would proceed to the select board and then would eventually, if it passed all of those, be on the town warrant for the citizens of Eastham to vote on. So what Glenn and I talked about as having a plan is that in January, we would discuss it in executive session with the police chief. So since it's regarding safety, that's what falls under having an executive session. And then we would come out of executive session and potentially have a vote on it so that we can come to a decision on it in January and get back to the select board so it can give the town enough time to know what's going on as they're shaping their budget in the town warrant. Okay, the next is the approval of the minutes. I do have a change to it. In the non-member attendance, it says that the Director of Finance, Dwayne Esteves, was in attendance and he was not there. So can I get a motion to accept the minutes of November 10th as edited?
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes as amended.
Okay, thanks, Deb.
Second.
Thanks, Lindsay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 4-0, Amanda. Thanks. Okay, so see you on January 13th and happy holidays, everyone. And can I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.